We're back here with another garage review, which is of this, the T1 Heavy Motor Carriage, which is a Tier 2 artillery. So, you're now wondering, what am I doing with an artillery in my garage? Because nobody likes artillery, and what's the reason for playing it? Well, I it's much like the FCM. I didn't really buy it for the combat value. I got it for what it looked like, because look at it. It's so funny looking and so cute. It's so cute and boxy. Look at it, it's so tiny. I mean, the next smallest vehicle that I have is probably the Universal Carrier. And look at the Universal Carrier compared to this. Universal Carrier is just about the same sort of height and width. And the Universal Carrier is very small. Even the Renault's fairly small, but it's still longer. So yeah, it's a very, very small artillery, and it's so cute and funny looking, but it's the newest SPG that's been added to the game, probably for ages, and it was part of the change to the T18 and T82, which previously were in place of the T3 heavy motor carriage and the T56 gun motor carriage. These are two new tank destroyers that were put in place of the T82 and the T18, because these two have previously been tank destroyers, as we all know, especially the T18 for all of those seal clubbers. Everybody knows about the T18, but the T18 was changed in 9.14. It was changed, it was moved to being a Tier 3 artillery, and the T82 was also moved to being a Tier 4 artillery, and both of them keep their, both of them have a 105 howitzer. However, the T18 only has the 75mm howitzer, which is pretty crap now. 4.8 aiming time and 0.68 dispersion, just to prove that it's actually artillery and not a viable way of tank destroyer, because most people would go around with the howitzer equipped anyway on their T18 and just go around derping people. Now it's been changed that you can't really do that anymore. The dispersion and aiming time is just too bad that no matter what seal clubber you are, you cannot make that work. Still has the 50mm of frontal hull armor though, which is what, 50? Let me have a look. Go to vehicle details. It's easy. Yep, 50, 31, 25. It still has the massive T18 armor. However, it's now in HD, I think. It's got even less hit points. It used to have 125, then it was bolstered down to 120, and now it's 110. So, yeah. And the T82 has been changed to have 130 hit points. So, yeah. But this was in place of Tier 2. So Tier 2 needed a new artillery. So in which case they brought in the Tier 1 heavy motor carriage, which is the tank that I'm now going over. So enough with the stalling. Let's have a look at it. So it has a 75% crew right now, and I've played... Let me have a look actually. I bought this thing with a 75% crew because I didn't have enough gold to get a 100% crew on them. So let me have a look at statistics. How many games have I played? I have played 19 battles, still haven't advanced 1% yet. That's because, what was my win rate actually? Statistics. My win rate has been 47% somehow, apparently. 19 battles, 47.37% victories. Survived that many battles with that many hits because artillery. Destruction ratio is 1.17 somehow. Armor use efficiency 0 because, yeah, it doesn't really have armor. Average score per battle 131 XP. I'm sure that will go down a lot. I somehow have got a first class mastery badge on it. Not too sure how. I'm guessing not many people play this vehicle. And I'm sure there are many reasons why. But anyway. 80 hit points, which is about the standard for Tier 2 artillery. It's less than a Tier 1 tank, because these are after all artillery, and that's a trend that continues along with the artillery. They can get one shot or very rapidly killed in a very short amount of time. So, yeah, you're not really going to be doing much with 80 hit points. It's very light though, 5.31 tons, which is just over the Universal Carrier, which is 4.62 tons with the 2-pounder. With the 6-pounder, I'm sure it's higher, but still not as high as 5.31, and I don't actually have a medium caliber artillery shell rammer yet, so I don't have that. But I do have the enhanced gun lane drive because I removed it from some other tank that I didn't really need it on. I can't quite remember what it was. Um, may have been the Crusader. I'm not too sure about where I got that thing from, but Crusader, yeah, it was the Crusader, because I'm sort of changing this into a proper scout instead of a sort of advanced scout slash medium tank sort of hybrid, because that's not really how you should use the Crusader, not in World of Tanks at least. Historically possibly, but in World of Tanks no. So I took off the gun lane drive and instead put it on the artillery, because everyone knows that artillery needs that and a gun rammer. Otherwise, it's not really artillery, as I know from the M51 Tier 5 artillery for America. So, yeah, so all I have is that on. So, with the artillery gun rammer, it will be slightly higher load limit, but other than that, yeah. 89 horsepower engine with its upgraded engine, which is the V8 89, which is better than the 75 horsepower of the stock engine, but it's still not particularly high. However, it is so light that 89 horsepower means that you can go at 34 kilometers an hour, which can make relocating fairly effective if it wasn't for the terrible traverse speed of 20 degrees per second. With the stock, it's only 18 degrees per second, and it's only got a 5.2 load limit, so you can't mount the stock engine or possibly radio. And of course, there are no turret upgrades because it doesn't have a turret; it's an artillery piece. So the traverse speed is very bad, 20 degrees per second. However, the gun arc definitely makes up for that, because the gun arc, you can get the gun to go around to around about here and around about here on both sides. So it is a very good traverse arc, which means you don't really have to turn your hull that much. So yeah, that's good. However, the hull armor is terrible. It's 9 all around, because, well, look at how thin that is. That's just a sheet of metal, and that's not armour at all, because it is, after all, artillery. You're not going to be going tank destroyer on anyone. After all, it's only tier 2. What tier 2s really have any armour other than the Panzer II and the French tanks? So yeah, armour's not really a thing down at tier 2. So 9mm is the same as 20. It's not particularly much of a big deal. I mean, this is a tank destroyer, and this has 1 more millimeter at the front and 2 less at the side and rear, and this is a tank destroyer. So, yeah, the armor is negligible, because after all, your artillery, if somebody spots you, you're gonna die, because 80 hit points of damage, even if they only see you for a second, you'll still probably die from someone else. So, yeah, armor at this point is useless. So, yeah, don't worry about armor. However, we're now moving on to the gun. There is only one gun, which is the Howitzer M1, which was used very successfully for airborne operations and things. It is because it's such a large amount of firepower in such a small package, means that many airborne groups of World War II liked to use the 75mm pack howitzer, because it meant fortifications could be taken down by airborne groups from the rear, and they could be dropped down on parachutes or whatever, go in by glider, doesn't really matter. It was a very versatile and useful howitzer, and well, it's 75mm, as it says in the name, has a 6.67 rounds per minute, which means that even with only a 75% crew and no gun rammer, that still means less than 10 seconds, 1 shell less than every 10 seconds, so yeah, that's very useful. 38mm of average penetration, which is pretty good, especially seeing as you're going to be artillery going top down, so yeah, 91mm with heat, but then again, heat on artillery is pretty useless. You're just throwing away money, because if you don't hit, you're gonna miss, and that will happen quite a lot with artillery, really. So yeah, your heat rounds cost 7 gold each, or 2,800 credits. So yeah, you'll just be throwing away money really using heat or any sort of premium round on artillery. So yeah, it has got 175 average damage and 110 with heat. So with high explosive, you'll one-shot anything at tier 2, definitely. Tier 3, not so much, because they generally have more than 180 health. So Tier 2, you'll definitely one-shot things if you penetrate, which you should do with 38mm of average penetration if they don't hit the tracks. But then Tier 3s, it'll take 2, maybe 3 shots. That's if you penetrate, which artillery never usually does. It has terrible dispersion of 0.8 and a pretty terrible aiming time of 5.5 seconds down at Tier 2, which has been horrible for my 75% crew. Playing this thing with a 50% crew, I have no idea, because you'd have to endure the entire 5.5 second aiming time. With a 75% crew, it's slightly better, but still you're aiming an awful lot of the time for not really that good of a payoff, which is why I've played almost 20 games in this. Doesn't feel like 20 games, but apparently I've played almost 20 games in this and still haven't advanced 1% in my crew. It's still going to take me another 3 games in order to get the amount of XP required to get them up. I have, however, got accelerated crew training, because literally the last battle that I played, I just free XP'd the rest of the T-18 because I hadn't yet unlocked it for the artillery trinkets and but yeah, that's terrible accuracy and aim time. The weight is 155 kilograms, 995 meters shooting radius, which is very good. That's pretty much the entire map of whatever you're fighting on, and it's only Tier 2, so the maps are generally smaller, like Mainz, Himmelsdorf. However, things like Himmelsdorf are artillery's worst nightmare, because it's just full of houses and things. You're not really going to be able to hit things, but, well, the damage and penetration is decent enough. However, that aim time and accuracy is just horrible. But 15 degrees per second of gun traverse, which is it's alright. It's not particularly fast. If we have a look at, let's see, the universal carrier, that's got 26 degrees per second of gun traverse, and that also has a very good gun traverse. It's like around here because it's open topped. You can, in theory, if this was a flat plate and it wasn't just a Bren gun carrier with a gun stuck on top, if this was actually a flat plate, this thing could rotate in 360 degrees. However, because of course you've got the driver and Bren machine gunner at the front, that's not flat, so you can't just traverse the gun all the way. So that's why it doesn't have a fully rotating turret. But if it was on a flat plane, then you would probably have a 360 degrees Bren gun carrier tank destroyer, which would be very, very interesting in World of Tanks. But yeah, although the gun traverse speed is not particularly fast, it's fast enough. It is, after all, artillery. 280 meters view range, 325 meters signal range. The view range is pretty good. The signal range is pretty standard for American vehicles. Compared to things like the French, it's better. But compared to things like the Germans and the British, apparently, not so much the Russians. That's a British radio, so you can discount the Tetrarch. But yeah, compared to things like the Panzer II, universal carrier, it's not particularly high, but still, it's only Tier 2 after all. And artillery, it's enough for you, because all you have to do is see people on the minimap and point and click adventure away. Well, so that's the stats there. Just looking at the 16.75 horsepower per ton ratio, which is well, that's pretty good. Your artillery, so you're not going to move much from your spawn point, but if you do need to, you can get up hills pretty efficiently. Has a 1.06 burst radius in meters, so really you have to hit the target in order to do anything, because that burst radius, I mean, looking at the 105 on the Howitzer, that's got an almost 2 meter burst radius, so near misses with the Howitzer mean you're going to do plentiful amounts of damage. However, near misses with these mean that you're going to do 10 or less HP of damage, which is really nothing. So this is really you have to hit to do damage with, sort of thing, because it just doesn't have the burst radius needed. It does have a 1,167 average DPM though, which is that's pretty good. It's artillery, so that's pretty rapid fire. You can keep people tracked. If my crew was higher, if I detract something, they'll stay detract, because it's basically a Tier 2 Burt sort of thing, except much less awesome. But yeah, so that's pretty much for everything. So, yeah, moving on to consumables, I don't have anything loaded, because artillery, if you get a module damaged or a crew damaged, that means you're going to be dead in a second anyway. So there's no need for those. The same with the fire extinguisher. You're not going to have a chance to survive. You'd just be wasting 3,000 credits on a fire extinguisher. So if you are going to use something, I would say only use a case of cola, just to increase your crew skills. Other than that, it's pretty useless for anything else. So, moving on to the equipment fit. Spooliner, no, definitely not. Your artillery, you don't have armour, so definitely not. Camonet, definitely, because you are artillery. You know, decrease the chance of you getting detected. Definitely that. The ammo rack, no. If you get hit, you are definitely going to die, so that's a no on the ammo rack. Shell rammer, definitely. Binos, possibly. You could spot your own thing, same with coated optics, but I would say an enhanced gun lane drive is a must-have. Toolbox, no. Once again, same thing with the consumables and the ammo rack and the spool liner. Definitely don't go with that, because if you are spotted, if you take any sort of module damage, you are going to be dead at that point anyway. So definitely not toolbox. So really, the only three things that you should mount is the gun lane drive, the artillery shell rammer, and the camonet. Possible binos and coated optics, but definitely get the gun lane drive and the shell rammer. The remaining slot is up to you, because the aim speed is pretty terrible. The gun rammer is always nice to put more shells down range, so yeah, definitely gun lane drive, definite artillery shell rammer, then your choice of camonet, binos, coated optics, but I would say probably go with camonet. So moving on to the crew, it is a crew of 4 somehow in this thing. You've got 4 artillery men somehow stuffed in here. I really have no idea, because this whole front section is pretty much engine. Then you've got the gun up here, and so you've only got this place to sit 4 people. So somehow they've managed to fit a commander, gunner, and radio operator, a gunner, a driver, and a loader. I don't know how, but American magic, they've managed to fit people in there. So, your commander. He is, after all, also the gunner, a gunner even, and also radio operator. So, it's really a choice of yours. So, relay, I would say hold off on relay until you get signal boosting, because signal boosting works very well in relay, because it extends signal range of allied communications within your own radio coverage. So getting signal boosters means more vehicles in your own radio coverage, which means more signal range to those more vehicles. So signal boosting, then relay if you're going to do that. But then again, negligible, because your artillery, you're not going to be near anyone else except for people who don't understand or are just cowards and hide behind artillery, because people do that. So those things are pretty useless. The same thing with sort of situational awareness. I mean, I suppose having a good signal range is useful for artillery, but really the Tier 2 radio is the same as any other Tier 2 radio. So, and even then, it's good enough. So perhaps hold off on signal boosting, hold off on situational awareness, but it's up to you. I haven't really played artillery, but definitely don't go with Call for Vengeance, because if you're dead, that pretty much means that the rest of your team is also dead, so there's no one to revenge you. So really, the radio operator skills are pretty useless, apart from really signal boosting in certain aspects. So yeah, those things are pretty much useless. Snapshot, increase accuracy during turret rotation. Yes, is probably one of the most important skills on an artillery, because every time you move your gun or your hull, the aiming reticle blooms massively, because, you know, artillery. So that's definitely a must-have. Deadeye, I would normally say yes, definitely go with Deadeye. However, don't, because it only works with AP, APCR, and heat. It doesn't work with with HE rather. And as your artillery, you're generally firing high explosive shells. So, Deadeye, no, not unless you're spamming heat. And if you are, you're wasting your own money, and you'll definitely come out with a loss on your artillery, because you'll mostly be missing, and the burst radius isn't good enough in which near misses are effective. So don't go with Deadeye. Armourer, improve accuracy of damage gun. Really, if your gun is damaged, you are dead, so no. Makes enemy vehicle visible for 2 more seconds. If you're spotting your own targets, then you're doing something wrong. So don't go with that either. Sixth Sense, if you've been spotted, you're pretty much dead, so no, don't go with Sixth Sense. Eagle Eye definitely is a useful skill, and probably the most useful commander skill for an artillery, because it means that you can see what vehicle you're targeting, how badly damaged it is, so you can easily tell when you've disabled modules or injured crew, so definitely Eagle Eye for your commander. Jack of all trades, if one of your crew is knocked out, you're pretty much dead, so no. Recon, if you're spotting your own targets, you're doing something wrong, but then again, up to you. A good view range means that you can spot your own targets, so that you'll be more aware of people sneaking up on you to kill you, so you can relocate, but yeah. And Mentor, possibly. I'm not getting enough XP to really warrant that, but then you've also got your common skills, which are, other than Camo or Brothers in Arms, pretty much useless for artillery. So the gunner, because you do have 2 gunners, the commander is a secondary gunner, so I'll just reiterate briefly what I said. Snapshot, definitely going to be useful. Deadeye won't work with HE, so don't go with it. Armour, if your gun is damaged, then you're already dead. And designate target, if you're spotting your own targets, you're doing something wrong. So really, only Snapshot is of use. Then train Brothers in Arms or Camo, because the other 2 are useless, because if you've either got damaged modules or you're on fire, you're pretty much dead. So really, those are the 3 skills that you can only use for artillery on. Yeah, those are the only gunner skills you can use on artillery. So for your driver, you have got, definitely go with clutch braking, because 20 degrees per second really is not enough. I have noticed that it is very, very lacking, so definitely don't go with that. Decreases the chance of engine fire. If you're getting set on fire, that means you're getting shot at, and you're doing something wrong, because artillery is not meant to get shot at. So don't go with preventive maintenance. Improve accuracy whilst firing on the move. You're not very accurate anyway, you're artillery. If you're firing on the move, you're definitely doing something wrong, so no. Reduces ground resistance when driving on soft and moderately soft terrain. If you're driving lots, you're doing something wrong. You're artillery. You stick to one place and shoot at people from a distance, preferably over a mountain. So you're doing something wrong if you're driving on soft and moderately soft terrain all the time. If you're ramming stuff, again, either A, someone has rammed into you to finish you off, or B, you're doing something wrong. So no, don't go with that. Firefighting, repairs, once again, if you've got damaged modules or you're on fire, it means that you are dead and you need to go back to the garage. So really, for your driver, the only things that you should be getting are clutch braking, Brothers in Arms, and camouflage in whatever order you want. I would probably say clutch braking, then camo, then Brothers in Arms, or swap those 2. But definitely go with clutch braking first, because that's the only skill you should need on your artillery. Which leaves us with the loader. So, increases ammo durability, safe stowage. If your ammo keeps getting damaged, that means you're doing something wrong. It means that you're getting shot at, which means you are dead and you need to go back to the garage, and it also means you have lost. So no, don't go with that. Accelerates gun loading if the vehicle has less than 10% of its hit points left. If you've got less than 10% of your hit points left, that means you're dead in half a second or less, because it means you're getting shot at, which means that you're doing something wrong. So no, don't go with Adrenaline Rush. Intuition, if you're swapping between HE and heat, it means that you're wasting your own money, or you have a very, very high gunner, because firing premium ammo from an artillery, especially one which has 0.8 dispersion, means that you're going to be missing a lot of the time, which means that you're wasting your own money. So if you want to waste money on that chance that you will be able to load heat and fire, and don't forget, if it doesn't penetrate, it means that you've probably hit the track, and heat loves to hit the track and do no damage but blow off the track, which means that you'll do pretty much nothing. You won't get any damage done unless you directly hit them without hitting the track. So if you're firing heat, you'll probably be only like only firing heat, or you'll only be firing HE. So intuition is once again useless, which means we've come down to the common skills and perks. Firefighting repairs means you're doing something wrong because you shouldn't be getting set on fire or having module damage, and if either of those two do occur to you, it means that you are dead because you've been spotted, which is bad for artillery. So really, only choose either camo or brothers in arms, because these things are really for anything but artillery. So in summary, there's playing artillery means that you really narrow things down for what crew skills you have, because the commander has got the most because, you know, he's 3 in 1. But if he wasn't, then the commander skills, there's only really 1 or 2 that you can really use. So yeah, playing artillery means that you're definitely narrowing down your crew skill choices, and it also means you'll be very frustrated because you won't be doing very much damage at all. But in summary, I got it for the looks. It's a pretty decent artillery if you hit. I have one-shot a couple of things in those few kills that I have got, but really it's highly inaccurate. It doesn't particularly have a good traverse speed, but then again, it's only tier 2, so you're not going to be sticking with it for much longer, and if you do stick with it, it means that you probably like it and you'll probably keep it, so you'll learn to deal with the quirks and flaws of it, and it'll also mean you've probably got yourself a 100% crew, because trying to get this thing up to 100% from a 75% crew is horrible. Trying to get this thing up from a 50% crew to a 100% crew means that will definitely be horrible. So yeah, I like it for the looks. I mean, it's very funny looking. It's got this exposed gun. It's just a funny looking thing, which is why I got it, because it's so small and cute. But really, effectively, it's not that great, to be honest. But I'll thank you for watching, and goodbye.